Hey everyone, Psychon here, and welcome to the definitive Resident Evil tier list. Except not really.
We made it up. It's a total fabrication. No way. It's false. It never...
Since the last video took a lot of time and effort, and my will to live, I decided to make a quick ranking of Resi games I've played so far. Here's the list. I have not completed Code Veronica yet, so I'm not including it in the list. I have not even touched Resident Evil 0, and I've yet to play the best Resident Evil game, aka Resident Evil Gaiden. Resident Evil 1. What can I say that hasn't been already said about this game? I mean, it's a classic, right? It's one of those rare remakes that I would have confidently say it's better than the original. If I've played the original, I have not played the original. So let's take a look at the original and see how it holds up compared to the remake.
Hurry! This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Resident Evil 1 Remake is a masterclass in survival horror. From pacing, to tension, to exploration, item management, it just got it all. You know, you can't bet against this game. Although there are Resident Evil games in the franchise that resonated with me more than RE1 Remake, just out of respect and its sheer quality, I gotta put it on S tier. You know those moments in your life where you replay a childhood favorite of yours and you found a new level of appreciation for it that you couldn't possibly have when you were a kid? But at the same time, you wish you could just forget it and experience that magic for the first time again? Well, I was lucky enough to get the best of both worlds. And that was playing the original Resident Evil 2 and 3 a few years ago. And man, let me tell you, I got it. Not only I got it, I witnessed the magic right in front of my eyes. I did. I was blown away by how good these games were. I was blown away by how 2 decades old games made me terrified and stressed out being chased by this thing. I mean, it's not even real. Like, look at it. It's like that one time I stubbed my toe, or how they made me so immersed exploring all these spaces that don't even look realistic. But that's my point. I could have just sat here and broke down all these games by objective metrics and modern standards, and how fixed camera angle and tanky controls is clunky, or pre-rendered background looks outdated. But who gives a shit, man? The magic is still there. I felt it and I loved it. I'll never forget my experience with these games, and for that, they are S tier for me. Now this one, unlike the previous games, I actually did grow up with. I used to watch my dad play through it religiously, and you're probably wondering what kind of parent lets their child watch shit like this or this. And to that I say, I have the same fucking question. This game just means a lot to me on a personal level, but it also helps that, well, it's Resident Evil 4, dude, what do you want me to say? It has a very engaging gameplay loop, from the shop system, to combat, to Tetris style inventory management. It has it all. This game also, you know the story, but kind of marked a change, not just within the franchise, but also industry in general, inspiring so many popular IPs like Gears of War, Last of Us, Dead Space. So yeah, it's a S tier material. The first ever co-op Resident Evil game. The last chapter on Chris Redfield versus Wesker Saga. This is what the series has been building up to. So is this gonna be great, or is this gonna be It's good. It's fine, actually, it's fine. I mean, yeah, Shiva's AI, when you play it solo and not co-op, is less than stellar. Some of the boss fights are a bit back, not gonna lie. Aside from those issues, it's a very enjoyable game from start to finish. And no, it's not a bad Resident Evil game. Dude, I am so sick of hearing that debate over and over again. Oh, it's a good game, but it's a bad Resident. What does that even mean at this point? What, like, when are we going to agree that any game that Capcom releases that has a Resident Evil title is a Resident Evil title and should be judged on its own by its own quality, not some arbitrary and made-up reason of what makes a Resident Evil game and what is not a Resident Evil game. Oh, Resident Evil 7 and 8 are not Resident Evil games because they are first person and Ethan is lame and is not pulling out jiu-jitsu move out of his ass like Leon, and Resident Evil 5 and 6 are not Resident Evil games because they are way too actiony. Bitch, have you played Resident Evil 4? At this point, Resident Evil has become a combination of so many genres and styles and storylines that to me, all side of Resident Evil is valid and acceptable. With all that being said, I don't love RE5. I mean, Wesker is a cool villain, but I was never really that crazy about him, like majority of the fandom. And the story of 5 is also entertaining. The gameplay is very solid. It's basically RE4 but with some quality of life improvements. Maybe it doesn't have the really good level design, but the gameplay loop is still there. Resident Evil 5 is a game that whenever I play it, I find it enjoyable, but I don't really have a strong feeling about it. Yeah, Resident Evil 5 is a solid B tier. Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. It has a really cool premise. What else? Let me check. Wait. What else can I say? It's a video game. It really. Man, this game is weird. For every cool and atmospheric and spooky section with Jill, there is a dumb, mindless action sequence with this jackass. And no, I did not make that up. His name is actually Jackass. His name is Jackass. I can't with this game, god damn. For every creative concept, there is a bad one in this game. And I don't hate it. Hate is a strong word. I don't hate this game. Because as I said, there is some really great moments in the game. There is. Like Rachel boss fight and the Mayday boss fight is amazing.
Mayday.
Genuinely some of the most disturbing and scariest sequences in the whole franchise. But man, the way it's paced with all these action sections and then horror sections, spooky perspective, and then cheesy and dumb perspective, it just brings down the whole package for me. I was still compelled by a lot of its ideas till the end, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that I am so done with this two-thirds into the game. I still recommend playing it once and deciding for yourself, but for me, unfortunately, it's a C tier. Alright, so I've been avoiding talking about this extra mode that has been a staple of the franchise since all the way back to Resident Evil 3. It's basically a mode where you're let free to massacre every single being that has ever dared to challenge you. This mode has changed a lot throughout the years. It went from sort of a niche thing to something fully fleshed out by RE5 and then becoming one of the best extra modes in Resident Evil 6. And I'm serious when I say this, it's one of the best extra modes in any video game. You have to play it to believe it. Now, why am I bringing Mercenaries mode before even talking about Resident Evil 6 itself? Well, you already know the answer. Resident Evil 6 is a mess. Not because it's a bad game, no, because it's a frustrating one. It has all the elements to be an incredible game, but every step of the way it makes a baffling decision to completely ruin its momentum. Why is there a 20-minute walking section before I can even engage with a single enemy in an action game? Why is there a clunky driving sequence when it can be just another cutscene? Why is there surprisingly low ammunition for a game that is all about shooting things? I wanted to like you so bad, but you're just so stubborn. RE6 is a game that is ultimately a jack of all trades and master of none. It has one of the most robust and fluid combat systems in any third-person shooter, but is always hell-bent on trying to be anything other than a third-person shooter, and it just falls apart. If you want my advice, just play the Mercenaries mode. It lets the combat shine the most. Forget about the campaigns, you'll thank me later. I'm gonna put it on high C tier. This game right here is one of the most underrated entries in the whole franchise. Similar to the first Revelation game, the story keeps switching between two sets of characters, and it has you rethread some areas in a different states with different perspectives. Speaking of which, this game has some amazing atmosphere, and funny enough, it reminds me of Evil Within with its grungy aesthetic. Revelation 2 also introduces stealth to the gameplay formula, which was like the first in the whole franchise, something that Resident Evil 4 Remake would reuse 8 years later. Wait a minute, Revelation 2 came out 8 years ago? Oh my god! I also really enjoyed the story of this game. I think the way it handled and wrapped up Barry and his family's story and arc was very satisfying and very sweet. So yeah, cool story, solid gameplay with enough variety of puzzles and combat encounters to keep you engaged till the very end. Yeah, I like this game. I'm gonna put it on B tier. Resident Evil 7 blew me away as soon as I stepped into that house and was chased by Jack Baker, and then getting my leg chopped off only to glue it back on with some goop juice. I knew then that this game is gonna be something special. Love it or hate it, this game really did save the franchise and led to creation of RE Engine, which would be used for most of Capcom projects in general ever since. The antagonists, the mystery, the gameplay, it all brought back the series into a state that felt like the original games, but also something fresh and new and exciting. I don't think I'll ever have an experience close to my dweeb ass doing a blind playthrough of this game and being in awe and disbelief with the direction that the franchise has taken after Resident Evil 6. I'll never forget it. And while I do have my problems with this game, both section, for me overall, it's S tier. Okay, so this is the part where this list gonna make a lot of eyes roll. That's okay, but how can I say this? I don't love the modern remakes. Alright, hear me out. It's not because they are bad games, they're actually amazing. Well, RE3 Remake less so, but RE2 Remake and 4 Remake are genuinely incredible. They just don't hit the same as a new mainline game or the originals for me. And that's just how I feel. Don't get mad if I put them lower on the list. That's just how I feel, okay? Now with that out of the way, RE2 Remake is perfect. It makes me mad how perfect RE2 Remake is. The pacing is perfect. It strikes a masterful balance between letting you explore enough but also pushing you forward at the right moment so it never feels like it's losing momentum. The tension never lets up. The moment you feel like you just seen everything and figured it all out, the game just throws a new enemy at you or mixes up older enemies with others to create new challenging scenarios. Stressing over managing your ammunition and resources while also trying to avoid Mr. Ass chasing your ex. Wait. Cut that part out. Stressing over managing your ammunition while also trying to avoid Mr. X chasing your ass. So yeah, the balance of tension and action in this game, chef kiss, they nailed it. It's so impressive how good they nailed it. If this was a new mainline game, this probably would be one of my favorite games of all time. But it's a remake of a story that I already know how it's gonna play out and how it's gonna end. And while the remakes have been all great, I just can't shake off that emptiness that I feel after each one that I play. It's just that we're not exploring an uncharted territory, we're just rethreading the past over and over. And I know I'm in minority, so that's fine. So yeah, as good as this game is, for me, it's still an A tier. Sorry. Unlike RE2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake is not perfect. It feels very rushed in some areas and very slow in others. The exploration doesn't feel as satisfying and feels very limited. And most importantly, they butchered Nemesis.
Look how they massacred my boy.
It's actually really sad going from the original Resident Evil 3 to the remake and just feeling that downgrade and how much less threatening Nemesis feels like in this game. Original RE3 on hard mode legit gave me an anxiety, and running from Nemesis had me like, why are you running? In the remake, whenever he shows up, it just feels like an action movie. It's very exciting, it's really cool. But my point is, Nemesis is supposed to be the Terminator of the franchise, an unstoppable pursuer, a force of nature. So having him be reduced to mostly scripted and on-rail sequences is very unfortunate. It's not all bad though. I love Jill and Carlos' dynamic. They are probably my favorite duo in the whole franchise. And the gameplay is also solid. It's just like RE2 Remake, but more actiony and more fast-paced. So it's cool. So yeah, not a bad game. But it's a very disappointing remake, in my opinion at least. I'm gonna put it on B tier. Listen, you're not gonna find a bigger apologist for this game than me. When people came for Lady D... Wait, that sounded wrong. When people came into this game because of Lady D, I came for Ethan. There is so much I want to say about this game, of how disappointing it is as a sequel to RE7 in terms of horror and level design, how shallow it is as a spiritual successor to Resident Evil 4 in terms of enemy encounters, shopping system, and upgrading system. Why every gun that I get makes the previous gun obsolete. I feel like I'm a scam, Duke. Hey, I'm talking to you, man, wake up. Despite my problems with Resident Evil Village, I have played this game like 15 times, I think, more than any other game in the franchise, and I made a whole video gushing about its environments, and I wasn't even joking about Ethan. I think he's one of, if not my favorite RE protagonist. I know he doesn't have much of a personality, really, but his journey through RE7 and 8 and how much pain and suffering he endured to save his family, I just felt for him, man. I really got attached to him, and the ending of Resident Evil 8 completely destroyed me. In my opinion, it's the best ending in the whole franchise, especially with that song. Oh, that song, man, it's so good. But I can't, in a good conscience, put this game on S tier. Although I love it, and I like it way more than the modern remakes and so many other entries in the franchise, S tier is a bit too much. So I'm just gonna make another tier for this game, and I'm gonna put it up there. Outside of few issues that I have with the game, like inconsistent stuns when you headshot an enemy, or lack of laser sights for a lot of guns, I think the gameplay is incredible. Gunplay and overall gameplay loop is just amazing. Encounter designs ranges from good to flawless, and boss fights are all fun, except Ramon, you're trash. Suck on this golden egg. Story-wise, I still prefer the original over the remake. If I were to compare them, the remake has more substance and rounds out all the characters more and tries to go for this relatively grounded take, while the original has a lot more style and flash. And in this rare case, I prefer style over substance, because the original just has this charisma and iconic and entertaining tone that the remake just doesn't have. But don't get me wrong, the remake is almost an improvement in every way story-wise. Luis, Krauser, Ashley, they are infinitely better than the original counterparts, especially Krauser. Remake Krauser, it just feels so sincere in a way that he's so cheesy and zany and over the top, but also tragic. You don't find these kind of characters in modern video games. So yeah, overall, I really like the remake, but similar to RE2 Remake, despite a lot of their improvements, I still think the original I resonated with more, but that's just my opinion. I'm gonna put RE4 Remake on high A tier. So that is my tier list. It's not a definitive tier list, sorry for the clickbait. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and maybe share this video with others so I won't die. And I guess I see you in the next one. Peace.